Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. We are here today at the FIX EMEA Trading Conference and Tom Doris is with me today. Tom, how are you?
Nice to meet you, very well.
Listen, thanks for coming on the show. A lot happening here today. You're on the panel, the AI panel, much hyped, much talked about AI panel today. It seems that every show I'm at the moment, AI is dominating the conversation. It's great to have you on there from a practitioner sort of side, as much as we've had a lot of vendors talking about the space. It is moving at incredible speed right now, so there'll be lots there for you to be talking about. Just give us a quick background of yourself and the company.
Sure. Well, I guess in the context of AI, I actually did my PhD in computer science and neural networks a very long time ago.
Before AI was AI.
Before it was cool, to be into neural networks, and then I worked in tech for a while and then came into quant finance. And I've really been using machine learning and earlier versions of AI throughout my career, and I co-founded and ran Otas Technologies, which essentially the idea there was to provide market data analytics powered by machine learning and anomaly detection to traders on the buy side and the sell side. And now I'm back at a hedge fund again, and we're using AI internally, and we're obviously staying on top of the trends. And I think the takeaway message that I'd like to give people from the panel today is that everything we try, we're impressed by how well it works, even stuff that we don't expect to work. These tools are fundamentally different to anything we've ever had before in computer science. They work extremely well once you learn how to use them. And really the challenge is just understanding the array of problems that we can tackle with this new technology.
I think that's a really interesting piece, because I'm encouraged by saying everything we're trying is working better than we thought.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging, because I still think there's a lot of reticence about everyone's posturing a little bit still, but there's early adopters like you who've been in it for a long sort of time, and the company who are ready to back this sort of stuff and move into it, rather than sort of being worried too much about what happens and whether we should or whether we shouldn't, and overthinking things.
Yeah.
The overthinking piece seems to be the biggest blocker at the moment, alongside the fear and threat and such. Like, how are you getting around that, and what are you seeing businesses do to get ahead of the race?
I mean, I think as with technology in general over the last 20 years, the barriers to entry and the cost of entry has come down and down and down.
Yeah.
So the best solution to an internal, long-winded debate is to build something that works and demonstrate it. Yeah. And that's incredibly easy these days. All you need is to write your prompt, give the LLM the data, and ask it to do something with it. And that's my kind of playbook time and time again, which has been more effective, and it really cuts through any debate or hand-wringing about it. I think there's a very big cultural difference I see between here in the United States, where it's much more, build and explore, and here it's much more, in Europe, it's much more about, what are the dangers, what are the risks, what's the regulatory implications, and that's quite stark. I mean, I think there's just a sense that this is a new and interesting and useful set of technologies that we just have to embrace and figure out what they're good at and what they're good for.
Do you feel that's like a regulatory piece, or is it a mindset piece? I mean, we know that innovation's been very much core of the US psyche. Yeah. And we're probably a little bit more reserved over in the European side. Is that a cultural thing? Is that a regulatory thing? Is it a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's mainly cultural. I think also, China, with the release of DeepSeek and the Quen models, and to those of us watching this space, we've known that those labs were good for quite a while. Now the US really sees that it is a competition with China, and China are viable, and they're producing models that are state of the art and open source, right? Which is a boon to people like us who actually use them. Right? We can use them essentially for the cost of hosting the hardware, which is fantastic. And that's really forcing the hand. And maybe there's a danger there that we don't have as much focus on regulation, but when there's competition, we're much more likely to have rapid advancement over the next year or two.
It feels like rapid advancement is the buzzword at the moment. I think one of the other buzzwords that we're talking about, and I'm sure we'll come onto the panel later on, we'll be talking about 2025 and the year of the agent. Yeah. Are you seeing that? Is that something which you're seeing take off at the moment?
Personally, I think agents are interesting as a concept that helps people understand AI and large language models in general, right? So this idea of an autonomous thing that can perform tasks for you probably resonates a little bit better than me describing the engineering behind a deep learning neural network and a transformer architecture, right? So I think it is a little bit more about marketing at the moment than it is about the actual underlying technology.
Yeah.
I think, to your point about the speed of advancement, what I'd say is that you have to bear in mind that this is moving very fast, and that means that if you try something and you get sort of a 60 or 70% success rate with it, that is a viable product, because in a year's time, that 60 or 70% hit rate is going to be 90 to 95%. And you get that for free just as the new models come out and they're better and provide better quality reasoning.
So in an industry which has been sort of averse to approximately right, which has been one of these sort of things which sort of holds people back a little bit with AI, certainly in this sector, I think.
Yeah.
You're talking about that sort of by nature of the whole thing improving over time. When's the phase there where it's sort of so compelling that it doesn't become a conversation?
I think it's there already, if people would look, and I think that part of the problem is just getting people to look. Sometimes it does feel like being Galileo. If you'd only actually look through the telescope, you'd see. And there is, like with any technology, it has been overhyped, right? Like a lot of technologies over the years, like blockchain, and many of those technologies didn't deliver. But I think this is a fundamentally different phenomenon that we're talking about here. So I understand a certain degree of healthy skepticism. But most of the cases that I see in the press where they're showing where LLMs don't do a good job or are hallucinating or are failing in other ways, they're really because you haven't used them correctly. You haven't provided them with the context, so of course they're going to hallucinate. Or you've provided them with mathematical content, which isn't really the ideal format. So one of the challenges for people in financial services is getting all of that historical content into the format that's amenable to consumption by the LLMs. And that's probably not, a vast array matrices of floating point numbers. It's probably summaries converted to natural language, which are then usable at the right level of abstraction by the LLM.
Very interesting you touch on this blockchain point there, because I imagine there's going to still be purists here today. And various people on various panels who will still be sort of decrying the fact that the lemon's not squeezed yet with the whole blockchain piece. It feels like you're on the different side of the court there.
I mean, I always thought that blockchain was interesting from a computer science technology point of view, but at the end of the day, it's a distributed ledger. There's nothing really new to it. And we have yet, sort of whatever it is, 10 or 12 years in, we've yet to find an actual killer app for it, and that tells its own story.
Fair enough. So as we're talking there, you go back to, again, we're a few years into the journey with blockchain. We're also many years into the journny with AI in various different forms. It feels like the vibe is that this is something here which is like, it's today's story. But everyone who's been in it a while knows that it's something that's developing. Why now?
I think it's the confluence of, listen, it's the data on the internet, which has made it feasible to train these generative AI models. It's also the advancement in compute power, mainly powered by NVIDIA. I think if you plot those two curves, eventually you cross into a critical point where even without any major advancements in the deep learning neural networks, and there have been some, but frankly, it's basically the same technology that you had in 1986 with Rummel Hart and McClellan's book, the classic text in backprop learning, with a few engineering tweaks, and still we don't have a really good mathematical foundation for why it works, but we know how to make it work. So it's purely driven by data and compute.
The size and scale of that has never been
relevant.
And the collaboration. There's so many different companies here who are working together. It must be a really interesting time to be able to look at all these beauty parade the businesses and work out how it works for you in your business. So let's go back to, we'll finish by just talking about the panel, going back to that conversation. It'll be a really interesting conversation. I've spoken to loads of people there who are very keen to be involved in it, very keen to listen to what's happening. If you've got a takeaway that you want people to walk away from your panel, your session with, that you would like people to be thinking about on that, what would that be?
I'd say just try it out. Whatever your crazy idea is, give it a go with this stuff, and you'll probably find that you're pleasantly surprised by how well it works.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, where you're saying, look, most things we're trying are working better than anticipated, which is not a bad place to start, isn't it?
It's very rare that you can say that about a technology, right?
Very true, very true. Tom, listen, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing. I look forward to your panel. I think I've got a window so I can come through and look at it. It's set to be brilliant. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
And thanks for your watching. We'll see you on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.